Hey guys, thank you so much for tuning in to the Nerds and Jesus podcast. Welcome. My name is Mary Howell. I'm a Christian and a worship leader who happens to also be a huge nerd, according to myself, all of my friends, family, and coworkers. And I've been wanting to discuss how Christian nerds are to navigate living in the secular world, how we are to be a light in the darkness, while also nerding out on all types of fandoms pop culture has to offer. And today we will be discussing and reviewing The Flash, but I'm not on this podcast alone. Back on this episode, I am joined this week by a friend, middle school director at his church, and huge nerd, JT Powers. JT, how's it going?
Good. How are you been?
I'm doing well. Yeah. Staying healthy. We got this stomach bug going around church right now. So we're good. We is healthy. So can't complain.
Yeah. I got to stay away from the evil bugs. I got a 2-year-old running around. I got to fight her diseases that she gets and all the ones that middle schoolers bring in.
Yeah. That's just the reality around us, but yeah, not doing good. Welcome back again on this podcast. So happy to have you back. Yeah. So we'll jump into The Flash in a little bit, but I know I always ask this question, and I think you've answered this twice already. So you could do a really short version of it, of just, just how long you've been a Christian and just a little bit of your story.
Yeah. Been a Christian for about 10 years. It's been a fun journey. Just learning, exploring who and what Christ is and how he fits into this world and how the world fits into his world, and just learning more and more as we go. And it's one of those things where I've learned prayer, and writing down prayer is a really important tool.
Well, yeah. And if anyone who wants to hear the longer version, you can go back to the first time JT was on the episode on the podcast. But yeah, that's awesome. Thanks for sharing. And then of course, the other one I usually ask, how big of a nerd are you? But for this episode, what is your history with DC? Like, do you remember kind of the first DC film you watched, or your first introduction to DC?
I believe, I want to say my first introduction to DC as a visual medium was Tim Burton's Batman. But with the comics, I'm not sure. I want to say it was a Superman comic book.
Yeah.
But, I grew up in the 90s, and I've come to learn that Superman in the 90s was not as cool as he has been before and since.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there was almost like a shift, definitely. Like Superman was all the rage for years, and then it shifted towards Marvel, a lot of it.
I'm a big fan of Batman's Court of Owls, that series. I really enjoyed that a lot. I wish they'd do a movie on it. Kind of hoping that's where Patton Robinson's Batman kind of goes.
Man, especially I love DC, and I don't know if I've said this on the podcast before, but I think really growing up, I was more of a DC fan than I was a Marvel fan. Now I've kind of grown to where I love Marvel, if not more than DC. But man, I just love the storytelling of DC comics. Maybe a little bit more, but we'll see. But man, I think in college is when I really got into more DC, especially when as CW began to release Arrow. And then we got introduced to Grant Gustin's The Flash, which he is my favorite Flash. So seeing Ezra Miller was really hard because I have the one mindset of he was like the Flash, Grant Gustin, for like 9 years.
Yeah, I think everyone who was a fan of the CW's Flash was really kind of bummed that Grant wasn't the movie Flash.
The movie. Yeah. And I get it. Yeah, I don't know.
It's kind of disappointing because, I think hands down, he's probably the best Flash we'll ever see. But also he had 10 years to develop.
To build it.
To develop who he was as both Barry Allen and the Flash. And,
so much room versus like only a certain amount of hours you got, and that's it.
Yeah. Exactly.
9 years of being the Flash. That's a lot of content, so it just, but we'll get into, we're going to do noise spoilers. I for some reason I turn on Australian when I say that. No spoilers first of The Flash. And then we'll go into spoilers later, but all right, let's just go ahead and talk non-spoilers right now of the movie. So here, 3, 2, 1, go.
Yeah. Flash is a good movie. We're just talking about how the Grant's version of the Flash took 9 years. And I think, there's something to be said there. When you have a half hour every week to develop a storyline, you go from a storyline that can be told in 2.5 hours, like the Flash, the movie did, versus CW, where they took 5, 6, 7 hours over the course of an entire season, or even 2 in some cases, to develop relationships, to develop a plot line, to develop all these things. And
I mean, every season had their villain.
yes,
and every season was, I don't know how many episodes, but a good, like maybe more than 15 episodes, maybe.
Yeah, it's crazy. And so for a lot of younger people who are watching this, I'd say younger, somewhere between 15 and 25, 15 and 30, who grew up on CW's Flash, which, CW gets a lot of flack for being kind of like this hokey place for superhero stuff, but man, they really, with Smallville, with the Arrow, with now Flash, they really learned how to tell really good superhero stories. And
now, do they know when to end it?
yes,
No.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
Yeah. Well, you shoot for the stars and sometimes you miss them and you just keep going into space, the same trajectory.
Yeah, I know they just renewed. I haven't seen the new Superman series that they've done. So I've seen him as Superman because of Supergirl, or, he's been introduced when they do their crossovers.
Yeah.
But I haven't seen the new one. But
I will say, like, what I really enjoyed about the movie versus the TV show is I really enjoyed his costume. I think probably out of the live action stuff, this is probably the best costume that we've ever seen. Now, I think there's some better costumes in the cartoons, but you're able to do more.
Yeah.
But
yeah, that's definitely his costume was great. Special effects was questionable at some points, but I know they chose to go that route, But I mean, I just say, like, this movie, like, I expected worse and I did enjoy it, but it wasn't up to the standards that I think we all wanted it to be.
Yeah, and again, it's that the movie was released in the wrong time period. If this movie had been released before CW's Flash, I don't think anyone would really complain, other than some of the terrible CGI moments. But unfortunately, you have, again, 10 years of wonderful storylines and character development and weird and quirky characters and cast members, and then you come to this, mega $1 million movie production that, quite honestly, and this is no insult to CW, it's really an insult to the movie production company, but it felt like it should have been a straight to movie from CW or straight to DVD,
Yeah. Man, I think another part is that because a lot of us, there's a lot of us who've watched the CW version of The Flash, that we've seen Flashpoint. And we've seen that plot, we've seen it, and I know a lot of even comics, we've read it. So I think that was one of the most interesting decisions that they've made, was to start with Flashpoint. But after watching it, you're like, okay, I get why they would go this route. But because of that, it was so predictable for those of us who've seen it, and those of us. But it's not just like those who are comic nerds. Anyone who just happens to watch The Flash on CW. I mean, there's a lot. I got to find those statistics of how many people watch the show. But man, I think that was one of the parts I'm like, ugh. Like, even my sister, like, well, we know who the villain is. Oh, we know who, all the Easter eggs or whatever it is, just because we watched the show.
Yeah. And that was unfortunate. And credit to the comic book writers. Like, that is the Flash's defining comic book, is
That's true.
The Flashpoint, for better or for worse. And, if you're out to make easy money as a movie production company, the Flashpoint is a rich storyline to take from, and you can go many different areas because there's a multiverse and there's multiple different versions of Barry Allen, and there's multiple Barry Allens going to do this.
And I wonder if it's because maybe not, I don't know. Is it overdone because we're so used to that type of plot hole within Marvel right now?
Maybe. I mean, maybe, but with the Arrowverse and CW, that's so big. I mean, that's
the whole thing. Yeah.
It's a whole thing. I don't know. I grew up watching cartoons of the Justice League and all those things, and Flashpoint inevitably makes it. There's no getting away from, for whatever reason, for better or worse, again, like, there's no getting away from the Flashpoint unless you just are determinedly set that the Flash cannot do that. And honestly, I think I think it's time that maybe script writers and comic book writers and cartoon movies and TV show writers just look at this and go, maybe we nerf the Flash in this one area, because he's so powerful with the Speed Force.
Yeah, and they filmed 3 different endings for it until they settled with what they had right now. And so James Gunn he cut 2 really good endings of what it could have been. I don't know if you read that. We'll talk about that in the spoilers. And I'm like, are you kidding me? You cut those 2 parts? Like, that's what I was missing. That's what was missing to tie it up at the end, and they chose to go that direction. But we'll talk about that in spoilers in a little bit. Or I guess we'll go ahead and just go into it now, because I was like, it's really hard to not. All right, so here we go on spoilers in 3, 2, 1. George Clooney. I was like, are you kidding me? What is happening? I thought it was gonna be Michael Keaton, to be honest, when I heard the voice.
Yeah. When I heard the voice, I thought Michael Keaton, and then George Clooney steps out. And I'll be real,
like, what?
I'll be real honest. It's cool to see George Clooney at the end of this film. It'd been better to see him in the outfit, like yelling at Robin. Like,
yeah.
100%. Or maybe having an argument referencing Batman and Robin, like how dumb everything was. I don't know, but
yeah, man, it was an interest. There was a lot of things to unpack in this film. I wished okay, let's talk about the things we love about the movie, and then we'll talk about things that we did not like. How about that? What I really did love was seeing a little bit of what I wanted to see within the Justice League, of like what it looked like. I think at the beginning, with even the whole hospital scene and CGI flying babies, but
they did us dirty.
Oh my God. I was like, this is so bad. Oh gosh. But I don't know. It was really cool to see the like Wonder Woman come back and Batman, the OG ones that we've been so used to seeing these past couple of years, kind of work together in that sense where, he's like, all right, so where's Batman? All right, where's Diana? Where's Aquaman? All that stuff. I think it reminded me a lot of the cartoon shows that I would watch, Justice League or whatever, and seeing them all work together. And it's this whole thing. And I that's what I wanted to see really in Justice League. It didn't feel like that in Justice League.
Yeah, and it was nice to have Alfred there as not really a background character. I think developing Alfred as a character is one of the better things that these Batman films or Justice League films could do, because the man is there. He's the man behind the chair. Yeah, he's not. It's not like he doesn't know who Batman is. He knows Batman. He knows Batman's greatest villains. He knows probably most of their identities, and he especially probably knows most of the Justice League's identities. So to have him as this kind of like pivotal, 911 dispatcher for superheroes, I was like, I'll take it. They had me at that moment. And then they very quickly lost me with the CGI babies falling from the sky.
I did enjoy how they started off, the movie of him. You could see his low energy, and he's about to take off all of a sudden, and then the girls were just waving at him. He's just like, but yeah, the CGI babies, the dog, and honestly, I was like, what is happening? And when he goes for the food first, I'm like, oh, what? But I get it.
I feel like they finished this film like 2021, early 22. Because I feel like the CGI in this film is very COVID era. It is. If this had been released right after COVID, I would be a lot more forgiving. But it's 3 years since COVID has happened. It's like the thing that killed movies, and just people working from home to develop these great films.
Yeah, and I don't know if this is true or not, but I think the director came out and was like, hey, they chose to go that route with purposefully, with that the CGI and stuff. I was like,
I understand. I understand. Like, you don't want to toss babies out of a 5-story window to do a cool shot. So I understand CGI there. I understand.
Yeah.
Later in the film, they do some really cool stuff in the multiverse. CGI there. I don't really have a problem with CGI. My problem is, for instance, when you watch The Mandalorian and you see The Mandalorian and then you learn how they make it, mostly it's CGI and you can't tell.
Yeah.
Whereas I am sure this movie had a bigger budget than The Mandalorian did, at least per episode, and you had lesser CGI for it, and it's just
I mean, Harry Potter had better CGI than,
and they had
and it's
child
the same
actors.
Studios. Yeah, it's the same studio.
Yeah.
Like, come on.
Yeah.
Warner. Yeah, and I think not seeing Henry Cavill in this movie was a little frustrating because you see everyone together at the beginning.
Yeah.
So you almost expect him to come back at the end, or obviously we knew in the trailer Supergirl was going to be there. So, I mean, I didn't expect him to show up, but I mean, at least something, give us something. I know they gave that little mini clip of him, you know, with the, I guess, volcano or something that he was doing.
It'd been nice to see his face before the Flashpoint part of the movie happens, because we never see Ben Affleck's Batman again. We never see Diana again. We never see Alfred again, I don't think. So it's...
Well, and then the original, so there's 3 different end credit scenes. One was at the end credit scene with Henry Cavill and Diana coming back at the end.
Right.
That was the original one. Then they scrapped it. And the second one was Michael Keaton, Batman. Then James Gunn's like, no, we're not going to do that. Scratch it. And then brings George Clooney in. And so they just approved it, I think, editing wise or something, like in January of this year. So I'm like, what? Like, they had 3 different endings there. I'm like, they could have tied it nicely, but
yeah, the DC, I don't know who's in charge. I know they're owned by Warner Brothers, I believe, but whoever's in charge of making decisions for their films.
I mean, it's James Gunn now. It is.
Yeah, but just...
even though those were not his original, you know, plans, I know he had final say.
I saw a review the other day that just said The Flash is what happens when you don't give Zack Snyder his 5 films. And I feel
that's what was missing. That's what was missing. Is that, you know, a little Zack Snyder like peppered throughout.
Yeah.
You know,
I don't know. I really wanted to like it. I went into it with a good attitude. I've been saying in the past podcast, I'm in old man mode. And I was like, you know what? I know I'm going to talk about this on the podcast. I'm going to go in with a good attitude. I'm going to think the best about this film. And then I realized my old man attitude is warranted.
Yeah. You know, it was interesting to see, you know, obviously we see, you know, his dad, you know, in jail. I was like, all right, you know, obviously same plot. This is who the Flash is. His dad's in jail for, you know, being charged for killing his mom, you know, trial, all that kind of stuff. But obviously we knew he was going back in time. But I did really love the fact that I don't know if this is in the comics or not, but they made Nora Hispanic. And so I thought Nora, right?
Yeah.
I'm going
the
crazy.
mom's name.
Okay. Yeah. But made her Hispanic, and then Hispanic. And I love that part so much when she would go back and forth English and Spanish. I was like, I love it. So I'm Hispanic. So I'm like, oh, but that was really sweet. I still have questions. We don't really find out exactly how the mom died. You know, we just know that there was a knife.
Well,
she was stabbed.
If you watch CW,
obviously
you know
CW, we know
happened.
it's the reverse. We know it's the reverse Flash.
Yeah.
But is that I didn't read the comics for Flashpoint comics. Do you know if it's always the reverse Flash that's the one that killed his mom?
I don't remember. I'll be honest, my main memory of the Flash is now the CW.
Yeah.
I've read comics throughout the years, and I've read, you know, Justice League and things like that, but it's the CW just has replaced, you know, the Green Arrow and the Flash in my mind with anything the comics ever did.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that's one of the things, you know, we wondered, and he obviously went back and said and moved the can of that way she had an extra can of tomatoes, you know?
Right.
But the minute, you know, I honestly didn't really catch that it was, my brain wants to say Salvatore because that's how it was in the you know, the Flash
right
show, but you know, it was himself from another timeline that pushed him out of that timeline so that he can create himself the way he's supposed to be, you know. And so when I saw that come, you know, push by, I was like, that doesn't look like the reverse Flash. I was like, is it himself? I was like trying to remember. It's been a while hitting it since I saw the Flash.
Well,
but
that first time you see him, it's like real fast. If you're at home and you can pause it or, you know, whatever, or slow-mo it down, you'll see it a lot better. But in the moment, you're like, oh, is that? He's got the purple gray hue, like maybe.
Yeah. And then we meet the really annoying version of Barry Allen.
All right, hold on. So which one do you think is more annoying? The college pothead or the one that we have?
The 18-year-old. I think the one we had is matured
Oh, I disagree.
He matured during this.
I disagree. I much prefer the alternate Barry Allen that's a pothead college student. He was much more, I don't know, to me, he was much more likable, and he was a lot more approachable as the way Ezra Miller
he wasn't
played
dealing
him.
with trauma.
True.
No trauma.
He hadn't experienced the world
died.
ending. That is very true. Twice.
Yeah. I was like our version of Ezra Miller, Barry Allen, has dealt with a lot,
It's very true. Maybe I should give a little bit more grace to the current Barry Allen.
Yeah, I guess, I don't know. I think he was just very, I don't know. I don't like either one more. I would say the 18-year-old is a little bit more annoying, but maybe it's my age at this point. But it's like, it was interesting to see like him and react with himself. I know I saw that in the trailer. I try not to look so much at the trailers because I really want to enjoy the movies as they come out.
I've kind of got this rule where I'll watch the first trailer,
but not the second or third one. But
definitely try to stay away from the third. And sometimes you'll see the second one on something else that you're just not even paying attention. You're like, oh, dang it. Saw that.
Well, and then you're going to see the trailers before movies anyway.
Yeah.
But I think that was interesting. And even that they tied it all together. Like that was the day that he got his powers.
Yes.
And that the current Barry Allen lost his powers.
Yes.
So that in itself, oh my gosh, his phasing. Can we talk about this phasing? It was so funny. He phased downstairs and I'm like, oh no, he's scarred.
I will tell you the one thing and this is what happens when you have a bigger budget. The CW's phasing is really cool, but I don't think I ever remember them doing like the molecular level that they did in this film, where they showed like the atoms vibrating together and passing through.
True. Yeah, no, they did not do that through the.
And I was like, oh, that's a nice take. That's something different.
Yeah.
Good job.
Yeah, honestly, like I thought that was really cool of them doing that.
But yeah, his random phasing into like his downstairs neighbor's, apartment and stuff like that.
There's a lot of comedy.
Yeah.
Honestly, okay, so before this movie, this last week, or recording this like that Monday, but like so the movie came out Thursday. So the previous following Monday, so a week ago, I started watching all the ones before. I watched Man of Steel. I watched the Batman versus Superman. Then I watched Justice League just to at least to remember. And I'm so glad I did, because literally we're back in the same plot of almost Man of Steel with General Zod coming back. It's the day that's happening.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm so glad I went back and watched it. So I was like, okay, I know where we are. But man, I think realizing that in this world that Clark Kent does not died. He died as a baby. Man, I was like, my brain still, though, I know Michael Keaton's Batman, when we were introduced to it, that was a really great intro. I really enjoyed it.
It was a great,
I was like, wait a minute.
It was a great intro to Michael Keaton.
Yeah, man, I wish I didn't really watch Michael Keaton as Batman, but I went back and watched clips, and I tried to do my research beforehand, and but just everyone that I know around me who was like, they watched The Flash because of Michael Keaton.
Yeah,
that's probably a lot of the numbers, the high numbers that The Flash will probably, have gotten this weekend is because of Michael Keaton, and most likely not because of The Flash. It's not because of Ezra Miller. Let me tell you that.
Yeah. Ignoring Ezra Miller's personal life, which can be difficult when it's so put out there. But Michael Keaton returning as Batman, like, was he the best ever Batman? No. But he's
most memorable.
But he's probably most memorable and most loved.
Mm-hmm.
And I wouldn't be mad to see, I don't know if Michael Keaton would even ever want to do this or not, but like a TV show with Michael Keaton playing Batman, They
could have continued it, but it's just that's the hard things about even reviewing a movie like The Flash, and like, we did Shazam 2, and all those DC ones, is that there's no future with these actors and this plot. They're wiping it clean.
Well,
they're starting with Blue Beetle, I believe.
The problem too is, honestly, the last good DC film that like made them real money and was also just genuinely good was Aquaman.
Yeah.
And they've all kind of not lived up to
Shazam was good. I really enjoyed the first one.
Shazam is good, but like when it comes to like Aquaman, like the CG was on point, the acting was on point, the storyline was good, the tension was there, the comedy was there, and it just, I don't know, it just seems like they stagnated, and I don't understand, what's happening behind the scenes, but they need to figure that out, and I hope James Gunn with this new reboot of the DC universe is kind of figured out their flow. And the good thing with that is like James Gunn and his brother are really talented people, talented writers, talented directors, and they've been a part of Marvel both at its height and you could say now it's coming down from its height these past couple of films, but they know what a good film series should be, and
exactly.
And I'm sure they've had tons of conversations with people like Kevin Feige, like how do you keep this thing that is a multi-universe stable and like interesting.
Yeah, that's what's going to be so interesting. But, well, for this film, Michael Keaton really, really brought it. And seeing even I recognize a lot of the ridge, like his Batmobile and I was like, this is amazing. This is so cool to see the bag of laughter, just like the little bag, and it was really cool to see those elements play in. But yeah, not having Clark Kent in the world. I'm like, all right, so they got to go find Kara, and they end up getting Kara. And I felt like it's our own little mini Justice League movie again with different players, really.
Yeah, it was just another getting the band together, just in a different format. We got old, they were like, Ben Affleck as Batman was old Batman. Now we're going for Grandpa Batman.
Honestly,
like, hey, I'm here for it. Kara as Supergirl coming out, I'm here for it. I don't think you necessarily need Superman in the Justice League as long as you have one of the two.
But the thing is, difference is that Supergirl, because she wasn't on Earth as long or exposed to the sun as long as Clark wasn't bulletproof or stab proof.
Yep.
I was like, when she got stabbed, I'm like, oh, right, she hasn't been around the sun as much because she's been literally separated from the sun all these years.
Yes. Purposely kept in a red light environment, which, how'd the Russians even figure that out?
I don't know. I really I watched the Supergirl show as well, and until it went downhill again, but it's always going to happen. It's like they're great at first couple seasons and then whoop. But I was weary at first because I really liked the traditional Supergirl blonde hair, and everything and what you expected. But man, she was cool. Yeah. She was I really enjoyed.
I wouldn't mind seeing that actress as Supergirl more often.
I mean, if James Gunn really wanted to bring her back, they could bring back. I think it was played by Sasha Cal, and so she.
I'll be honest,
did a great job.
Out of the superheroes we got to see long term, I think she was my favorite part of the film. It was just this raw anger, and then,
I mean, imagine barely being able to get out and realizing that her one job that she was sent to protect Clark, and Clark is dead, and
yeah, she's mad. She's mad both at her own people and at the humans of Earth,
for keeping her hot, keeping her away from everything.
And the only reason she's doing this is because one person thought it would be the nice thing to do to save her.
Yeah.
For no other reason than she's a prisoner.
Yeah. When she came back in to lift up, Ezra Miller or Barry, I keep saying Ezra Miller, Barry Allen, same person, but Barry Allen up to the sky. That was a really cool shot. I know it's not CG. See, that CGI was good. So they can do good CGI.
Well, it's one of those things talking about the bad CGI in this. I hated watching the Flash run. I'll tell you what it reminded me of. And I only know this because I have a 2-year-old.
Twilight?
Nope. I only know this because I have
That's what I think of.
I only know this because I have a 2-year-old. If you go to Disney Plus right now and you look and you find Winnie the Pooh, it's the one where they're puppets. And they are on a green screen floor. And if you just watch their feet, they slide over the green screen floor, because for that time period, they didn't have simulators to make sure everything stayed in place. You can even watch this on children's TV shows where the YouTube, channels haven't made quite enough money yet to really narrow down their look. And his feet just slid like they're ice skates over the ground. I'm like, you're running. All right. I know
So that's why now you need to go.
I know what a run looks like. I've seen people run. I've run.
That's not running.
People don't glide over the ground, no matter how fast they are.
Yeah. You got to go back and watch the making of Twilight when they're running through the forest. Okay. It is the funniest thing to see because they're literally on these, like, they're holding it with like these poles or wires, whatever. And they're just like going like this or something. Like, yes. It is the funniest thing to see. So that's literally the minute he started running. I'm like, some Twilight stuff here.
I liked the pose in the beginning. I think it's dumb.
Yes, that was cool.
I think it's dumb, but I also thought it was cool. Just his running.
And then when he tried it and he had no powers and he was like running around. It was so funny.
Yeah, and his run and him swiping the air. I want to know why they made that choice. I don't understand why you're swiping the air. Are you getting the air resistance out of your superhuman face?
I don't know.
Because if so, you shouldn't be hitting bugs as much as you say you do in the film.
Yeah.
I feel like you could see the bugs, move them.
Well, and I thought it was interesting, though, how they did, go into whenever he goes into the Speed Force to, go back in time. You could see his feet, rewinding back.
Yeah.
And seeing all that play out. Obviously, CGI is like, bleh. But, you kind of expect it in that, I guess, in that world. But it was interesting to see. I don't know, eventually, whenever this is way in the future, like later towards the end of the movie, we see all the different versions of multiverses collide, where we see all the old school Superman, and also don't forget Nicolas Cage as Superman, the Superman that never happened.
What a gem! I am here anytime you want to talk about Nicolas Cage's movie career or any of his films.
I love Nicolas Cage.
I am a huge fan of Nicolas Cage. In my eyes, as weird as that dude is, thematically in the world of movies, let me put this barrier up. In the realm of movies and TV, he can do no wrong.
Oh my god!
He is.
Did you watch his recent movie that was like about him? It was like he was himself playing himself.
No, I really want to though.
And with Pedro Pascal also, and it is so funny. It is so good.
But to me, that man can do no wrong in movies or TV. And I understand that that's a very divisive thing to say. But I love him, and just to see him as Superman, and he was fighting a villain in his universe he was supposed to fight in the movie was brilliant.
Which I think it was a great way to bring him in that moment, because they always like during his time during that part, he was always intended to be the next Superman, and so but that never happened because they ended up just canceling all of it, but. So he never got his chance to be Superman. And so,
which for a man who named his son Kal-El is such a shame.
Wait, he named his son Kal-El?
His son's name is Kal-El Cage, I believe.
What?
100%. I have to Google this. I need Nicolas Cage to be a live action Superman at some point. Like, it has to happen.
Oh my gosh, it is.
It's
Kal-El. That is amazing.
I mean, if you want to talk about Superman fans, I think Nicolas Cage is probably number one in the world, other than maybe the people who made it. I don't know, but
yeah,
he is a genius actor, and it's beautiful to see him in a role he never got to do.
That's so
But
funny.
Speaking of that, like roles that they never got to do, they made fun of like Back to the Future.
They did. Well, that was the whole multiversal spaghetti that they did of just really explaining it, basically saying everything that Marvel would just explain what multiverse time traveling stuff is wrong. This is actually how it is. Like I felt like that's like literally what they were doing. Like, all this stuff, like basically tell the audience all the stuff that you've been learning about like the multiverse and time travel. Nope, that's all wrong.
Michael Keaton is here to correct you.
I was like, man, that was really funny to see. But
I think one of the best CGI moments we did see though, and was the multiverse like bowling ball things.
Yeah,
to me, like that was like the best use of the. I don't know how do you say this, like.
I mean, because those Superman who were there, I mean, they're gone.
Yeah, like that elastically plastic look that they had was perfect for the multiverse. It was nice to see Adam West. It was nice to see Christopher Reeves. It was nice to see, all these different people who have played these things kind of be recognized for like what they've done, and the fact that like, look, these are things
like we know they're different movies. It's kind of like DC saying, "Hey, we know there's been a lot of different versions of movies of all these characters, but they're somehow are able to coexist because of the multiverse."
Yeah.
You know, like I think it was a good way of them doing that, and I think it really is a good launching point for James Gunn's future films. Like, hey, now we're stepping into a different Earth. We're stepping into a different multiverse storyline.
Yeah.
Just how Robert Pattinson's Batman is a totally different multiverse. It is. Yeah. It's a different universe. So I think that was really cool to see. Even in this multiverse, Gotham is safe.
There's only one where Gotham is a good place to live.
It's a good place to live. There's no crime.
Like, yes, let me get an apartment on Main Street.
Man, but even at the end, you know, Michael Keaton in the Cineverse is fated to die, which is why, you know, we see Barry, like the 18-year-old Barry, going back and forth so many times because he just can't deal with that loss and reality that, like, no, that he's fated to die. But yeah, when eventually Salvatore came, or himself, it's Salvatore in the, you know, in the show, but they didn't call it that in the movie. But whenever he showed up as himself, I'm like, here we are. Here it is.
Here we are. The probably the best couple of seasons that CW had, and they wrap it up
all summed up
less than 6 minutes.
Literally, like, oh, it's himself. There he is.
Yeah.
But it was cool to see 18-year-old Barry Allen. I guess I keep saying he's 18. I'm guessing he's 18 because he's in college. But 18-year-old, you know, Barry Allen do the sacrificial play there, realizing who he would become if he kept down this path. And man, that was cool to see. But I bet it was really hard, that whole scene of Barry going back and realizing he had to let his mom die, and that was really touching. I think he did a really good job.
But if you watch the movie to the end, like, yes, he learns that his mom needs to die for him to be who he is in the world where it is, but he didn't really learn his lesson. He's still screwed with time with putting the cans of tomatoes on the top shelf.
Yeah, but that's a whole other thing also. Like, the amount of like little things you do in order to have a whole different act or a different person play. Like, what do you mean just by putting the tomato cans on top? Bruce Wayne is a totally different person. Like, that in itself hurts my brain and makes absolutely no sense at all. At all. Like, if this was Marvel, that would not have been a thing at all.
No, well, Marvel likes to keep their things nice and simple. Like,
yes, that's why I was so I was like, what do you mean it's George Clooney? What?
They want 8-year-old little boys and girls to know this is what happened, and they can tell it to their friends.
Yeah.
DC did not care. They're like, we need you to be an astrophysicist, and we need you to understand string theory, and we need you to understand quantum computers and quantum this and that. Good luck. Here's some old spaghetti.
Literally. And that's what was frustrating. I'm like, what do you mean? Just because he moved the cans to the top? Like, there's different people in this world now. Like, that absolutely makes no sense.
Well, and their whole theory on the time travel, it was, if I caught it correctly, is whatever you do affects both the past and the future. But how can it affect the past? Because if it affected the past, you would never have made the decision that you made because you're in the present.
See, I guess my brain is going back to the future.
Yeah.
Like, that's where my brain is just stuck on that thing.
It's weird. I didn't care for it. I like that George Clooney got to come back. Unfortunately, we didn't get to see him with Robin or in a suit. I know. But I like that we got him. I'm glad he was willing to do it.
That is true. That was, but even him explaining it to Aquaman at the end, I was like, well, they brought back Aquaman, but they didn't bring back anyone else.
Yeah.
But I enjoyed it. Like, I don't know. I had mixed feelings coming out of the movie theater. I had friends. I went with a bunch of friends, and half of them were half of them were like, oh, it was great. Actually, it was really awesome. The other half's like, bro, that sucked. So I don't know. You know, I'm kind of like right in the middle where I had to look at it as, you know, DC standards. And maybe, you know, I think James Gunn wants to raise those standards, you know, high. And
yeah,
he, yeah, it's hard because I really do like Henry Cavill as Superman, and I know it's not
honestly
ever gonna happen,
I think
so.
Henry Cavill's probably been our best Superman to date in the live actions.
He's just what. And I realized that even going back and when I watched all the original Superman, I was like, man, I forgot how good he was as Superman. Like, it was just so good and so well done. And maybe because he's been Superman in he's had his cameos, even in, unfortunately, we don't talk about Black Adam, but like he was also in Black Adam for that.
Yeah.
It was really sad.
I think this movie is good.
Yes.
I will probably never go out of my way to watch it again. But if it was, I don't have cable, but if I was at my mother-in-law's house who does have cable and it was on, I'd watch it.
Like in a couple of years, like when I rewatched, I never thought I would rewatch all the Superman and Justice Leagues and all that again. Like usually I'm like, all right, I watched it when it came out, like let's keep going forward. But man, I really I haven't watched them in years, and I really enjoyed just rewatching them. Even some of them are as bad as they are, but it's going to be a long time. I don't think I saw Black Adam against my will 3 times in theaters.
It's the Black Adam, I think, is a great example of everything that's wrong with DC.
Yeah.
Whoever directed and wrote that script and edited it had no understanding of DC. Like there's, in DC, they kind of run things like Pokemon does. Like fire is weak against water, but fire is really good against grass. The circle of like powers and what affects what the best, right? DC runs like that. Superman is weak to magic. So Superman's never going to willingly take on Black Adam because he knows that. He's always going to find the magic user to do that. And the fact that Black Adam is the evil version of Shazam, Superman 100% of the time, if he's able to, going to call on Shazam to fight Black Adam while he goes takes care of Lex Luthor's latest scheme. Or
yes, Superman just feels to be that he's the hero that's going to be all over the world because he's the one that can deal with volcano eruptions, right, or a lot of natural disasters, or a lot of those big things, and leaving it to everyone else for like the other villains, or obviously if it's like a world-ending event, he'll be there. But that's why I really love watching all the animated shows. I went back and watched them a lot, even in college, and I absolutely love watching them all work together, and even the Flash, at this point is grown up and he has his kid who's also, also has powers, and it's really cool to see the whole family part of it. I don't know, I know there's so much more you can do obviously with animated shows and in the comics, obviously. So this as being the very first time seeing really, we've seen, I think they've done the Flash movie before, but to this scale, I guess.
I think they've done it once live action, probably in the 90s or early 2000s. I want to say I remember seeing something like that. But I maintain that if you want to watch a good DC film, go watch the animated stuff.
Yeah.
Go watch it.
Oh, yeah, they've definitely done other ones. Oh, just shows
the
like
animated, the animated version of Flashpoint is way better than this. And I'm going to be honest, if I was the director of this Flash movie,
the 2013 one, the Flashpoint Paradox one,
yeah, I would have just looked at what made that film great and just stole it scene for scene, shot for shot.
Yeah, honestly,
because honestly, like your nerds are really going to go recognize what you stole it,
and all the new folks are going to love it,
and all the new folks are going to love it and think you're a genius for plagiarism for your own material, and good for you. That's
the thing. Like as James Gunn builds the universe, I guess he's calling it the DCEU. So
yeah,
DCU. Did he call it that? Yeah, he called it the DCEU, the DC Extended Universe. So yeah, I'm interested to see what he has planned. Is he keeping George Clooney since or maybe it's totally different? I don't know.
If you're James Gunn, I think the best bet is to just scrap it all.
Do someone different. Start differently.
With Blue Beetle. Do a weird, quirky movie. And go from there.
I'm excited for Blue Beetle. He hasn't been in any live action stuff as far as I remember. We've only seen him in a lot of the animated stuff. So that's the only reason why I really know Blue Beetle. I haven't read much of his comics either. So
I don't know anything about him from the comics. I just remember him from the Teen Titans. I think he's in that. And
yep.
Maybe some other one-off episodes and other stuff.
Yeah. So we'll see. I don't know. People are kind of have a love-hate relationship right now with James Gunn because of The Flash, I think, but people have to of just changing it, but hey, it wasn't his movie from the beginning, yeah. Although I do want to see the different endings that they had planned. They need to release that. That's what we need. Please
release it to YouTube.
Please
let us see what you denied us.
I mean, the Zack Snyder cut of Justice League, that went well, when they released it. So I mean, come on, they know we want to see that. So well, anyway,
I am both dreading and looking forward to what James Gunn is going to do.
Yeah,
in the sense of, are the execs over these studios going to let him do what nerds do? Because I don't doubt that James Gunn enjoys comics. I don't doubt that he enjoys this version of movie cinema.
I mean, his version of Suicide Squad was great.
Yeah. And so, if they're going to let him do what he needs to do, I'm really interested in seeing it. If it's going to be the same old stuff where it's not really good, I'm not interested.
But I think he has a lot riding on his plate because everybody has very high expectations. So
yeah, well, and you can't help but have high expectations after the Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah, man, especially the last one.
You put those three in his lab and you go, look, I need something as good as that.
Yeah, man. We'll see. Blue Beetle is this year.
I believe so.
So we're not too far away from it. It's going to go quick. So we'll be back right on here reviewing it. So cool. Thanks, JT, for jumping in on this episode of reviewing The Flash.
Yeah, totally.
I usually always ask my guests if they want to add anything else, anything you want to say, or any social media want people to follow you on, or any hot takes you might have.
Hot takes? I don't really have anything other than Nicolas Cage is the best actor of all time. And I'll put his career against anybody.
I'm telling you need to watch the one with Pedro Pascal and the one about him, because literally I can't spoil it. You need to watch it.
So that one's on my list, but also this one where he plays Dracula is on my list.
Yes, that's it's on. I saw the trailer for it. I need to go watch it.
It looks good. It looks good. And so I think we should just get a bunch of people
Nicolas
together
Cage
and
podcast
have a Nicolas
episode.
Cage. We need to get a bunch of people together and torture them with Nicolas Cage movies one after the other without telling them.
Nicolas Cage movie marathon.
And then just talk about it, because I think it'd be hilarious.
Oh my gosh. That'd be really funny. You could get one of those Nicolas Cage pillows, have you seen the one that you just Oh man. Yeah. Okay. You need to go watch that movie, because they talk a lot about its character. Pedro Pascal is obsessed, with Nicolas Cage. So, but he, in an interview, obviously I'm a huge Pedro Pascal fan. But he did an interview, I think, for promoting that film, but his whole actor that he grew up just idolizing was Nicolas Cage. Really, exactly. So he talks about this, and he's like, actually, I've never told you this. And he's literally right next to him and begins to tell him of how much, and you could just, it's just this is a great interview. So you gotta watch it. But anyway, cool. Well, thanks so much for jumping on this pod, talking Nicolas Cage, talking about The Flash. Yeah. And I'm sure you will be on the podcast again, as we are planning a one shot with a couple of friends, and it'll be set as a bonus episode on the podcast. Or those of you who do not know anything about D&D, never heard anyone play D&D, hey, this is your introduction. So we'll have that coming up soon for everyone on this podcast who listens. So thank you so much again for joining, and everyone else, we'll see y'all next week. Hey, thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Nerds and Jesus podcast. This podcast is produced, edited, created, and hosted by me, Mary Howell. I also run our social media and Patreon page, and also did our art. The music is by John Bjork. And if you're looking for a way to get connected into the Nerds and Jesus podcast community, you can follow us on social media at Nerds and Jesus. And for more bonus content, physical merch, and so much more, you can visit our Patreon page, patreon.com/nerdsandjesus. You can also become a producer level patron as a supreme nerd, where you will get your name read at the end of every episode as well. If you would like to continue continue to support the show, you can share this podcast word of mouth with everyone you know. You can also review and rate our episode wherever you get your podcast. Anything helps, and thank you so much for listening to this episode. See y'all next week.